All right, we're recording here with Hosa. Go ahead, Rishan. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, well, thanks for meeting up with us today. Just a little bit about our group. So we're hosts of Red Pulse. We're grouped through our high school. Our high school has a healthcare competition called HOSA. And in that, one of the competitions is community awareness. That's the event that we're participating in, and we're sort of spreading awareness about the national blood shortage, blood donation, misconceptions about blood donation, and all that. So we just wanted to talk to you today to ask a general question about like the legislative feel of it, if there is any, and also what you recommend as like a community figure running for a politician and all that. What you recommend students and other people can do as well in terms of getting involved, not just with the blood shortage, but with any sort of community issue. So you were talking also, I know you were talking to me about the issue of civic engagement and all that. That then also there's all these health issues. There's tons of issues in our community. So we just wanted to hear from you as a prominent figure in our community and our neighborhood of what people can do sort of about that. So if you want to get started, just introduce yourself just introduce yourself like, to the call of who you are, what you value, what you're running for, and just a general background.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Hosa. Is it Hosa Red Pulse? Is the full name of the group? Thank you all so much for having me. I'm Erin Ding. I am a member of the Barrington 220 community, which I think you all go to Barrington High School, right? Awesome. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm a twice elected member of the school board, of the Board of Education. Just to be clear, since it's being recorded, I am not representing or speaking for the school board in any way, but I am an active community member, and I'm currently running also for Illinois State Representative in our 52nd district. And so that district stretches all the way from South Barrington in Hoffman Estates in the south, all the way north to Volo, which is getting very, very close to Wisconsin, and then from Algonquin in the west to Libertyville in the east. So it's 129 square miles. It's a massive district, and our school district, as you probably know, is also very big. It's 72 square miles, and that goes pretty much from Carpentersville in the west to Inverness, Deer Park in the east, and then from South Barrington all the way up through Tower Lakes, and a little slice of Port Barrington. So so really, really excited and grateful to have served our community as a school board member for the last 2 terms. I'm on my 2nd term. I was elected in 2021. I was the top vote getter, very grateful for that. I ran on equity, communication, and stewardship, and was the top vote getter out of 11 candidates, and the first woman of color on the Board of Education. And now we have 3 women of color. So it's pretty impressive how that changes. And we have 4 people of color on the school board when my colleague and I were the first 2 in 2021. So really interesting how that has rapidly changed. And I think it's a good thing, because I think the school board should reflect our community. And you all probably know that we're 40%, nearly 40% students of color in our school district. So yeah, very inspired to by my school board service to run for Illinois State Representative. What the General Assembly does with regard to education law has such a direct connection to how our public schools are run across the state, from both how they're funded to the kinds of programmatic initiatives. The Teach Act was an act that was passed a couple of years ago by the General Assembly, and that integrates Asian American history in K through 12 throughout the state. And we were the first state in the country to do that. And we saw a direct effect from that, because as a school board, we actually approved instructional materials that enhanced our Asian American history and literature teaching throughout the school district. So you really see a lot of direct connections between the General Assembly and what's going on in our schools. And so I'm currently running in the March 17th Democratic primary. I'm a Democrat. And and so we currently have a Republican in the seat. So if I win the primary, I would be trying to flip the seat from Democrat to Republican. The school board is nonpartisan, so I am neither party when I'm serving on the school board. And I am running as a Democrat for state representative. So it's a little bit different. In terms of just personal, I'm a longtime freelance journalist. So journalism is my background. I know that you all are interested in health occupations. And so my husband, he's actually a physician. He's an anesthesiologist. So I'm somewhat familiar with the medical field, but not it's not the same as actually being a physician, but I'm kind of physician adjacent, right? So, I definitely care deeply about healthcare costs and access and affordability. I have a junior at Barrington High School. His name is Chandler. I think Rishan and a few of you have known him for a while. Also a seventh grader station in Cali. Both of them are in the Chinese immersion program. And I think some of you probably got to know Chandler through ESC at Huff as well. So that's some of my background and a little bit about me. And so ask away, whatever you have for me. You're all muted, so you might have to unmute yourself if you're gonna ask.
Yeah, Horace, do you want to start first with the first question?
I think the first question's for you, Armand. On the last ones.
All right, 1 second. So we wanted to ask, as a member of our community, what kind of community-wide issues, such as national blood shortage, that we've been focusing on, have you come across in your time as like running for the state representative or on the Board of Education?
So, when it comes to healthcare, I don't know that a lot of people know that there's a national blood shortage, right? And that's so important in terms of what you're doing, because I think the Red Cross just declared one in January, I believe. I think the blood supply fell like 35% or something like that. And so I think that in terms of specifically the blood shortage, like a lot of people just don't know, right? And don't know why it's important that we keep the blood supply up. And so I think it's hugely important that you're doing this, right? And that you're trying to generate awareness. I think when it comes to healthcare, what I'm hearing a lot about is, are a couple of things. One is affordability, right? So when HR1 passed last summer, it really caused people's healthcare premiums to soar and to go up. And there's, I'm hearing, part of my campaign is to talk with people and just listen, door to door, or meeting to meeting. Just listen to the conversations. And I think people are really worried about affordability issues, right? How do I pay for my rising healthcare premiums? How do I think cost is big. How do we rein in insurance companies, right? I hear that a lot, and kind of put some more regulation around them. When it comes to healthcare itself, I'm hearing a lot about mental health. We've heard from our students, particularly at BHS, that you all want more healthcare services or mental health services, especially. And I think that some of the actions that we saw in the fall and are continuing to see around federal immigration enforcement in ICE has also caused a need for increased attention to mental health, because we have families, and this is not a downtown Chicago thing or Minneapolis thing. Like this ICE overreach is really prevalent here. We have a school in Carpentersville that, in the fall, a few blocks away from the school, there was federal immigration enforcement action going on and people being detained. And even that, there was one day in particular where there's just a lot of activity happening, and we sent extra administrators to the school. We let the families know, because this is at Sunny Hill, where most of the students don't have busing because they live within a mile and a half of the school. And we let our families know, like, hey, if you need transportation in any way, like, we'll provide it for you, whether it's a ride home, because federally, and the Supreme Court has ruled this, you're guaranteed a public education in this country, regardless of your status, right? And so we don't ask the status of our families, nor are we allowed to legally. And so every child under Illinois law has a right to an education, and under federal law has a right to an education. So we had, we had a lot of primary trauma from families and students who are kind of undergoing this anxiety around ICE activity, and then secondary trauma too, from their friends, from educators and their teachers who are worried about their students. And so I think these continuing to provide and bolstering mental health supports in our schools for our students, our families, our educators, I think that's hugely important as well. And so much of mental health is connected to physical health, right? Like, if students aren't sleeping enough, if they're not eating enough, right? If they're worried about, like being able to, if their families are worried about being able to see the doctor because of medical bills, or a lack of health insurance, right? That affects the ability of students to learn and be fully engaged. So all of these things are interconnected in terms of physical and mental health. And I think that's really important to remember in emotional health as well. So that's some of what I've been hearing, if that helps answer your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Relating to the topic on community issues, we also wanted to ask you on your personal opinion on these types of issues, and if you have personally gotten involved in any of the issues. Like, for example, have you ever donated blood? And if so, like, how was your experience? And if not, like, what has prevented you thus far? And would you be open to donating in the future?
Yeah, I actually have donated blood, and the first time I donated was actually at my high school as a high school student. Do y'all have blood drives at BHS? I actually don't know.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
one.
definitely.
There's one actually happening this week on the 27th with the student
Oh
council.
yes, that's the one
Yeah.
I'm supposed to sign up for, right, Rashid? And I will. Yes. So I think that is awesome. I think that's huge in creating awareness, because I don't think that a lot of students are thinking, oh, I can donate blood and I should donate blood, and these are the ways it would help. I honestly think that when I was a teenager, I might have been in it for the free cookies afterward, like the cookies and the juice, right, to keep your blood sugar up. But it was actually really gratifying, to like kind of see that bag of blood fill up and know that, maybe it could, my type A blood could like help somebody who might need a blood transfusion, or is in an accident or something, or might or having a heart surgery. And so I think that's hugely important. And then I had I had a couple of frustrating issues afterward, where it was like one time, subsequently after my successful blood donation, like the needle like popped out of my arm like halfway through, and the people running the blood drive, I don't remember if it might have been a local Red Cross chapter. But they said they had to throw the bag of blood away. And I was like, oh, then I like sat there and had blood coming out of my arm. And then I think I had I continued to try to donate blood in college. And then I think my iron level was a little too low, so I couldn't donate. And so there were a couple of like threshold issues. But yeah, I would love to, I think it would, it's, the blood donation drive that you're holding will be a nice litmus test to see if I can actually donate properly, which obviously I would love to again. But I think it's great that BHS holds them, and that you all as students are part of modeling that.
So, like, segueing into community initiatives, we know that there are many community initiatives that work to fight these issues, like Citizens for Conservation, BACOA, the Red Cross, and there are also a lot of youth community initiatives that address these issues. And we wanted to ask you about those. Like, for example, how important do you believe it is for the youth to engage in community issues and try to make an impact?
Oh, hugely important, because I think there are a few reasons. I think peer-to-peer education is so crucial. I think you're a lot more likely to do well. At least I can speak for, maybe I'll speak for Chandler. I think my son's much more likely to do what his friends are doing, right, than what my husband and I suggest for him to do, right? And so I think most of what he's involved in, like robotics and cross country and track, like, I think part of why he's involved is like he has really good friends, or FCA or Uprising, some of the Christian groups on campus, same. It's like, even when we ask him, like, why did you decide to go? Oh, because my friends are going. So there's so much power in you and your friends, like whether or not there's that like actually having to overtly tell them, but when they watch you, donate blood regularly, or when you model that, there's just so much power in it, and way more powerful than their parents saying, hey, you should donate blood, right? So I think that is huge. And then Rich and I were talking about like even civic engagement, like a lot of students I've been talking to like have no idea like that they can vote in this primary election if you're 17. So as long as you're 18 by November 3rd, which is the general election, if you're 17 during the primary, you can vote. And so I think like, building that awareness is really important, because when you begin to vote as a teenager and you exercise that right, I think it's far, far more likely that you're going to continue to consistently vote, right? Just as you all probably know that, once somebody donates blood and it's like, it's not as scary or not as hard or not as cumbersome as they might imagine it to be, they're gonna feel good about it. They might like the cookies at the end or whatever you're giving now, and will continue to do that regularly. I mean, it's the same thing with civic engagement and in voting. It's like, oh, like that was really easy, and I got to have a say in democracy. And I honestly, like, I wish more and more people would vote because of the sacrifices that people had to. I mean, people were killed, right? People were beaten to try to get the right to vote over the decades and centuries in American history. And so to not vote, right, is almost a disservice to everybody who felt like it was so important they were willing to die for it. So, and also there's that mantra of like, if you can't vote, you can't complain, right? Like, and there's some truth to that, right? Like if if you're unhappy with, the way our representatives are representing us in Springfield or in Washington, or even on the village board or on the school board, and if you didn't vote, like, it's kind of like, well, like, what right do you have to complain if you didn't have a say in picking your representatives and your leaders? So so I think it's just so hugely important to get involved at a young age. And I would even encourage, if your like younger siblings aren't too squeamish around blood, and even if they're not old enough to donate blood, it might be a good idea to be like, hey, like, you want to volunteer, or do you want to like sign people in, or do you want to just kind of like see what it's like, hang out here for like 30 minutes? And in the same way, I remember my dad taking me to the polls whenever he voted on election day. And back then we didn't vote by touchscreen. We had like punched ballots. And so the poll workers would give me a sample ballot, and you'd like vote for Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King or George Washington, like just, but like you got some practice as a kid, like punching a paper ballot. And so I think, you know, when appropriate, like the younger the exposure for kids, the better, because it gets them thinking like, oh, this, like for me, I was like, oh, I want to, as soon as I turn 18, or in this case, 17, if you're 18 by the general, like I want to vote, right? Like, you know, like I want to give blood because I saw my big brother doing it. And I know it's going to help people. So it's so hugely important, I think, for those two reasons, for peer mentoring, and for, you know, just getting people accustomed to, this is normal. This is something that I do. And when it becomes when it becomes normalized, like when you're like, oh yeah, I give blood every quarter, right? It just feels weird to not do it. So I think making it like a constructive, not necessarily habit, but a constructive part of someone's life is hugely powerful. And it's, I think, the easiest to do that when people are younger.
Yeah, for sure. And piggybacking off of the question we just asked, we also were wondering, how can student-led campaigns be better supported so that they can generate greater impacts on the community?
I think so. So one thing that we have every single school board meeting is something called public comment, right? Anybody from the community, sometimes people from outside the community, they'll come in and comment, but you know, students, parents, educators they have 3 minutes to talk about whatever they want, you know? And so I think that's really important. And it's not just the school board that has it. Every public meeting, there's a chance to public comment. So whether it's the village board, you know, the village of Barrington has the same thing. South Barrington has the same thing. Like you could come as a community member and talk about whatever you want. And almost always those meetings are recorded, and almost always somebody is watching. I know for our school board meetings, it's always live streamed on YouTube. So it lives kind of forever, these meetings. You can call it up either at any time. You could take your clip of your public comment and probably replay it. And then you're talking to the whole school board too. And then our communications person is always at their school board meetings. And that's something that, you know, he might be able to integrate into these community-wide newsletters. So I think take advantage of those public comment sessions, right? And you don't have to stay for the whole board meeting. Nobody expects you to, right? Although, I mean, I think they're kind of interesting, but if you're taking AP Gov, I think you have to stay anyway for at least one of them. But I think like we love to hear from students, right? Not enough students actually make comments at public comment. They come for recognition, which is great. And then they leave, or they come because they're AP Gov and they try to like stay their mandatory hour and they leave. And then some will stay the whole time, which is amazing, but almost nobody public comments, so that when a student does public comment, like it's very memorable. Like even now I can remember, like we had students who were middle school students taking Latin, and they were worried about their Latin classes getting phased out, and they came and made a public comment. Or one of your classmates, Daniel Lee, who's a junior, like he came and he did 3 minutes about how, like, you know, how he liked the new screen policy, and that we should, you know, think about more ways to reduce reliance on screen time, because he thought it was healthy for him and for his classes, so his classmates. So you kind of like, you remember these things as a board. So I think, you know, take advantage of that. You know, definitely you all are so adept at social media, right? Like get on TikTok and do something creative. But I mean, I think, yeah, I think often, you know, nonprofits, like public official schools, like there are platforms that can kind of help amplify those messages. And when it's for such a good cause, you know, like they're probably not aware there's a national blood shortage, and they're probably not aware that HOSA Red Pulse is doing this blood drive. And so I think the more engagement you can have, because it is unique. It is unique when students come before boards, and it's memorable. So I think reach out to the communications person at these nonprofits and at these local government agencies, because almost everybody has a communications person, and say, like, I would call them. You could do like a very simple press release and say, like, hey, HOSA Red Pulse is hosting a blood drive. This is the time, and this is why it's important. We have a national blood shortage going on. So yeah, reach out to communications folks. You can reach out to the media. The Daily Herald has this section called the neighbor section, where anybody can write in about their civic event. And sometimes they'll just straight reprint what somebody writes. And then that's a way to kind of, amplify your message through traditional media. But yeah, definitely use those comms folks and those PR people. Like, they're always looking for something. And when it's student led, and student involved, and it's for a good cause and something they don't know about, like, hey, the Red Cross just declared a national blood shortage, I think they're going to be more willing to engage. It does take some extra work, but I think it's worth it to amplify the message.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for letting us know. Actually, that's actually a really interesting idea. We were thinking about that, but we just didn't know how to get involved, sort of, if that makes sense. So thank you for letting us know. Actually, that definitely sounds really interesting. Like, speaking in front of the school board and getting our message across in that way, because this is just like, such a fragile problem that needs to be addressed more in the community. So, going
We would
along
love to
with
see you. Just so you know, the next school board meeting is March 3rd. So March 3rd, and then public comment is usually at the beginning. So you get there a few minutes early, and there'll be like a sign up sheet for public comment. And and you just sign in and say, hey, I'm talking about HOSA Red Pulse blood drive and the national blood shortage. And the board president will call you up during public comment. And so, yeah, and the meetings are always 6:00 on the first and third Tuesday, usually the first and third Tuesday, but we're having an election, of course, on March 17th. So that's going to be the 16th. So yeah, a week from today, if any of you are interested, come by and tell us about I think we're going to miss your blood drive but I think you're maybe having one mid-March or later.
no, ours is March 1st.
Oh, so we're just going to miss it. Darn it.
Yeah.
But you could also, you don't have to have an event coming up. Like, you could just share more about the organization too, and saying, like, you're going to have a blood drive in the spring, you're planning on one, and you really want to get people involved. And here's where they could look up more about HOSA Red Pulse. Like, here's where they can find out about the national blood shortage. Like, yeah, it would be great. Or you can wait till you're closer to your next blood drive and let us know then too. But yeah, for sure, like, look up when the different board meetings are, community meetings are, and come in for public comment.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So going along with the interview, you and like many other prominent public figures in our community set an example for other community members, especially students and the younger generation. So we wanted to know more about how you and other, like, prominent public figures can get involved. Firstly, do you see maybe any opportunities for there to be meaningful legislation to promote student initiatives and support them? Initiatives that make a positive impact in our community by addressing some of the issues in our community. Do you see any opportunities to promote them through legislation or government backed, maybe one example I have is like providing instruction on these sorts of issues in schools to maybe increase awareness. Do you see any ideas or opportunities for that? That's what we wanted to ask first.
Oh yeah, I think those are great opportunities. We have so much in terms of instruction that's mandated, and in fact, there are so many mandates that I think I don't know for sure, but I know that it's something like 300 more mandated hours of instruction than are actually in the school year, which is of course a little bit stressful for educators. But I think that it's also sorry, I have the mosquito right here and trying to grab. Got it. Sorry, that's on the recording and everything. Speaking of things that take up blood, so I think that some of our curriculum, though, I think would naturally align with like talking about blood donation, blood shortages. And I am not I don't have the minutia of what our health curriculum is, but I think it would be great if you partnered with, if you met with, so we have a department of teaching and learning, right? And they're in charge of the day-to-day instruction. And so if you even wrote Dr. Byrne and asked like, hey, could we meet with you to just find out like what's in our curriculum around blood donation and blood drives and how it can remind me, do students have to be 17 to donate? Is that okay?
16 with a consent form, 17 and above, they can donate. No issues.
For voluntary, yeah. So maybe that's more of a like high school level health, right? And maybe meeting with so it'd be like Dr. Byrne. Hang on one second. I'm trying to look up a couple of names for you. Let's see. Because they're very responsive, and our district actually really loves when things are student driven, right? And student led. So I think they'd be pretty open to it. So Dr. Byrne is our assistant superintendent of teaching and learning. She also oversees Kelly Hansen, who's our director of secondary curriculum instruction. So I would maybe write Dr. Byrne and Dr. Hansen and Kelly Hansen, and their email should be on our website, and ask if host a couple of you could meet with them just to talk a little bit more about how is blood donation integrated in our curriculum, and what further opportunities would there be to amplify it. And then it's interesting in terms of legislatively, you asked, because I do think Illinois has legislation, like I don't know if it's called blood donor legislation, but there's some kind of, oh, you know what? It's actually effective as of this year. Have you heard of the Illinois Employee Blood and Organ Donation Leave Act?
No, what is that?
So that allows it allows employees to actually take unpaid leave for blood donation if no paid leave is available. So it's like 1 hour every 56 days, so that you could, I guess, donate every 2 months. But the employer has to have at least 51 employees. So Illinois has actually been pretty friendly, I think, to blood donors. I think part of the obstacle here is like, you all are very passionate about blood donation and you didn't know about this, right? And so I think creating awareness is a big thing, that like, hey, did you know that if you want to donate blood, like your employer, if you have more than 50 employees, your employer has to let you go and donate blood, right? Like it shouldn't be punitive, it should be encouraged. And so this is like an example of legislation. Again, it's called the Illinois Employee Blood and Organ Donation Leave Act, if you want to look it up. It's Senate Bill 3188 and House Bill 1616. So there's something for your project and for your discussion that like, hey, and I'm just now finding out about this as well. There's a few parameters, right? Like employees have to have worked there for like at least 6 months, and you have to have like proper documentation and stuff like that. But I think it's pretty cool that, you know, you're allowed to leave every 2 months to do something that is good for society, right? So there's an example of legislation right there that encourages people to donate.
All right.
And then I think like it would be kind of cool. I don't know if, you know, it would be kind of cool to entertain, like, is there a way for students to get, this might actually be in your question, so I don't want to jump it, like volunteer credit hours or so. So, okay, I'll stop because I think it is one of your questions. So
Yeah, no, that's actually the next question.
Oh, okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah, related to our campaign specifically, like, would you support introducing student incentives? So currently at BHS, they don't offer volunteer hours to students who donate blood. But I'm not sure if other schools do either. You can get hours for volunteering at blood donation centers, but not for donating blood specifically. I'm not exactly sure why. Do you think maybe you would support introducing student incentives like civic service credits, volunteer hours? Like for example, Mr. Waxler does promote donating blood as a method of local civic engagement within the community, to address problems like health issues in our community. So, civic service credits, volunteer hours, or any of those other things through legislation that could maybe help increase turnout among student donors, because currently student donors tend to be on the relatively low side because they don't understand, and that goes back to also what you said about civic engagement and all that. They don't understand the importance of it necessarily. And so do you think maybe anything that could offer like civic service credits or volunteer hours, legislation that could do that, you would be in support of that?
Yeah, I mean, I would, as a state representative, yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, it's easier to make it uniform, right, across school districts, instead of every school district or every school board having to decide like, oh, like, should this be? I think, you know, just as I think that the Leave Act that I just mentioned could be a model for that. Like, just as every employer with 51 employees or more has to let their employee leave, right, to donate blood. I think that, you know, I think it's definitely promising to say, hey, you know, every student who's 17 and up who's willing to donate blood, like this should count, right, as volunteer hours or you know, civic service credits or you know, some kind of recognition if you're very regular, just like you were saying. So yeah, I would be supportive of that for sure, especially because we know there's a blood donor shortage. We don't know there's not enough blood donors, period, and we know that the student population in terms of donating blood is even lower. So any kind of incentive, I think that makes sense. In addition to cookies and juice, I think that it would be really helpful.
Connecting to that, as a campaigner, we think your outlook on this like subject would be quite unique. So as a campaigner, do you see advocacy for these types of community issues like blood donation being included in larger civic engagement and political campaigns in the coming future?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you all are doing me a big service, right? And educating me around blood donation and the national blood shortage. And so I think that, you know, we need to create as much awareness as possible and educate each other. So I think when we're talking about healthcare, and access and affordability, we can also talk about ways to give back, right? Because I do think that, you know, the vast majority of us are really generous people. And like, and even if you don't have enough to make a financial donation, like this is a donation of time and literally a part of yourself, right? That I think you don't need to have a certain amount of money, right, to be able to serve in this way. And so I think that, people should absolutely use their platforms, whether it's, writing about the national blood shortage or, advocating for, blood donation, for increased blood donation, or weaving it into a campaign like mine. I think the next time I talk about student advocacy, I can give this example of like, hey, there were, half a dozen students who were so passionate about blood donation that they hopped on a Zoom at like 10 p.m. to talk about it. And then in telling that story, there's a way to also weave in national blood shortage and, willingness to donate, and coming up with innovative ways, and ideas like offering volunteer hours and civic credits, to donors. So I think I absolutely think that this can be woven into a campaign platform. I intend to talk about it more just by talking with you. And I think, the most effective elected officials, right? They have these conversations, and we learn because we recognize that we don't know everything, that there are people passionate about issues that we are not, like, we're not as aware of, like blood donation. And so I think that, for me as a representative, right, and also as a school board member, like I didn't know about Hulsa Red Pulse until Rishan called me and texted me about it. Like right now, now I know, now I'm super aware. And I think I just think it's so cool that those of you who are interested in health occupations and who are passionate about blood donation, have a like-minded community and can mentor other people in doing this. So, I mean, I certainly I'm going to talk about you all and the blood shortage and what you're doing about it a lot more, because you all were willing to meet with me tonight. So good job. You're educating me too. It's a mutual thing for sure.
So I know you kind of touched on this already, but I was wondering how else can students play a role in shaping public awareness to improve outcomes, such as in public health and in the national blood shortage, and create lasting changes in the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think doing this, right? Talking to people one-on-one who might have some kind of influence or who could spread your message to others, I think is really important. But also using other platforms, like if you've say you made like a creative TikTok or something about blood donation, or about like how it's so much easier than people think, and you kind of strike down these anxieties that people have through like doing something creative or putting something on social media, and say maybe you're asking somebody to donate blood, but like they're too scared, and then you bat that down, or like they think it'll take too long and you bat that down, or and so I think when you think about the obstacles that people have to blood donation, and then you kind of answer them in a way that is creative or engaging, I think that really helps too. So I think like using the power of social media is really helpful. Again, coming to public comment, like I don't know like if you had all thought about that before, but I mean, I think that engages locally elected officials, and they can also amplify your message. And so and writing into the neighbor section of the Daily Herald and saying, hey, we're having this event. I mean, that's something that you could still do. Is there a chat right here? I'm going to try to. I want to send you all that email right now for, let's see if I can find it. You know what? I can't find it right now, but I'll send it to Rich and I'll text it to you. It's like they're always asking for submissions, but you know, writing them and saying, hey, we're having, because it's not like our board meeting might be happening after your blood drive, but we still have a few more days, right, until March 1st, and we could get something in the Daily Herald online, right? Hey, that we're having this coming up. So, but again, I think like texting your friends and, you know, letting your friends know, I think that that is huge. Like when I campaign, like whether it was like running for school board or now, I just like, I try to make sure to like ask people to tell other people, right? It's like the whole idea of concentric circles, right? If you can share something with 3 people and ask them to share it with like 3 of their friends, like it will spread and spread until people are like, oh yes, you know, like I want to do this, or like in my case, like I want to vote for her because of this. So so I think, you know, if you have that kind of concentric circle mindset of like, hey, I'll tell 3 people and ask them to also tell 3 more people and then ask them, I think that's big too. And also like something as simple as, I don't know if you've done this already, but like just posting on your bulletin boards, right? Like making a flyer and just posting it. You have students walking past them every day, right? Like I think I saw the Cinderella poster on there, and you know, I think just kind of, you know, like using all forms, right? Whether it's social media or like a printed flyer or texting your friends or like word of mouth or public comment. Just I think like harnessing all those means of communication to let people know. And also repetition, like the follow-up. I think like there's a communications mantra that you have to share the same message to people like 7 different ways, 7 different times for them to actually remember and for it to be sticky. So like if you have this blood drive coming up March 1st, it's kind of like first you tell somebody and then you remind them and then you send them the link to sign up and then like, hey, you remember it's March 1st, right? Like it's almost like you got to text and then you got to email and then you got to ask, like call them, like, right? So just to kind of hammer that into people's awareness, because we're all doing, 50,000 things. And you just ask Christian, like how many times he had to text me to remind me to to get on a Zoom with y'all. It was like, oh, like, do you have time to talk then? And like, yeah, and it's just because, people's lives get really filled up and they think they know that this is important, but you just have to kind of nudge them and remind them sometimes. So, yeah.
All right, so going off that as our final question of the night, as an experienced campaigner yourself, what advice do you have for us, for any students interested in creating their own awareness campaigns that they want to make a positive impact with? And what are some important things that students should focus on, or what are some common mistakes that they should try and avoid?
Yeah, I think that, you always want to have kind of like this 90-second pitch, right? So when I'm at the doors and somebody answers, I want to very quickly like tell them like who I am, like what I'm running for, why I'm qualified and why I'm the best candidate for that position, like why they should vote for me, right? Especially now when it's like we're back to like 22 degrees. And when somebody opens the door, they're going to be freezing. And so you got to get that out quick, right? And so it's engaged. So know like what you're like, if there's 3 points that you're going to make, right? Like that, like, we're having this blood drive and this is why it's important and this is how you can participate. And, just like, 3 key bullet points to make your pitch, right? And then also, what I find helps, and this is kind of my natural inclination as a journalist, like what helps engage people in conversations are questions, right? So you give them your pitch and you say like, hey, can you share, like open-ended questions, right? So can you share your last experience of donating blood? to me, like, how did that go? Or if you haven't, like, or if you haven't, why haven't you? And like, and would you consider it? Right. So because people are more disarmed when you ask them questions rather than like telling them what to do. Right. So I would like have your pitch when you talk with people one-on-one, and then follow up with like, okay, so tell me a little bit more and tell me and then they start sharing their experience. And then you say, okay, well, we're having this coming up on March 1st. Would you be willing to like stop by? Would you sign up right now? And then like have an alternative where it's like, okay, well, like, I don't really want to sign up. Well, if you don't want to sign up, will you take this flyer, right? Like, will you take this brochure and pass it to somebody else in your family who might be interested, or a friend who might be interested? So like, I always have a follow-up for a no, right? And then even in the age of like everything digital, like maybe have like little pieces of paper flyers to pass out so that they have something tactile to hang on to that has all the details of like, this is a blood drive, this is how I sign up, this is, these are the incentives, whether it's like you get a donut afterward, right? Like you get a donut and you're gonna feel good. So I think that's really important. So make a pitch, have your points, and then have some open-ended questions for folks. And then also like be prepared to field some of their concerns, right? Like, so if they're like, oh yeah, I tried donating, like in my experience, right? I tried donating and like, it just didn't work out because, the needle popped out or my iron was too low at that time. Like, maybe do a little bit of research to have an answer and be like, oh, well, the needle popping out, it was probably just a bad stick. Like, it happened a long time ago. Would you be maybe willing to try it again? Knowing there's a national blood shortage and, that people are really going to be desperate if they can't get a transfusion. Right. And so I think maybe anticipating some of the no's and the reasons why, like you could at least get people to go from a hard no to like hey, I'll think about it. Right. Like, so yes, I think that in terms of like, things to avoid, like don't take the first no as a hard no, right? Like ask like a question to try to clarify, because it might not be as hard of a no as you think, right? So I think most of the time, like you all are doing something like really good for the community. I think you're going to get people who are pretty receptive. It's just like, trying to reach them. I don't know, I guess students could be a little fickle about this, right? But it is something like an experiment you could try, like even tomorrow, like make it a challenge for each of you. Like, I'm going to talk to 5 friends, right, who aren't part of Host or Red Pulse, to tell them about this blood drive, share my reasons, share why I'm participating, and ask them if they'd be up for it too. Right. And so like practice on your peers, right? Like if each of you talk to 5 people and you each get like, 2 people to sign up, right? You're already at like 20 people, including yourselves, coming to your blood drive. Right. So yeah, it takes like just practice on your friends, and and the more you practice these conversations, like the more convincing you're going to be. Right. So I think that's big. And then like come up, like if you don't already have one, make a flyer, post it on the bulletin board, right? like have, and then make mini versions to pass out. So those are some suggestions I have, given that, your blood drive is pretty soon. And then follow up. Also, one thing that I've done at the doors is like, when people are receptive, I say, hey, could I just jot down your email to keep you updated on my campaign? And then, you could say, hey, could I just grab your phone number so I can text you the link to sign up? right? Or grab your email I guess now it's mostly texting, right? So make sure you get contact info so that you can follow up, because people might say, oh yeah, I would love to donate and I'll be there, and then totally forget. So make sure they sign up, make sure your sign up has reminders. This is very analogous to our get out the vote efforts, right? Like we make sure we're reaching people in many different ways, and then like holding their hands until they get to a polling place or mail their ballot in. So lots of follow-up. Contact info and follow-up.
All right, thank you so much. I think that was our last question, unless anybody else has anything else they want to add. Nothing? Then I think we're all good. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And you said this is part of a contest too?
Yeah, HOSA is a national competition. So in about a month, we're going to travel to Springfield, and we're going to compete. We're going to show our judges all that we did this year to try and combat the national blood shortage. So this will definitely be going on there.
That is very cool. Well, best wishes for that. I'm so glad that you're getting involved in this way, and it's obviously from your point of view, like it's voluntary and it's a civic service, and so I think it's really important, and I'm really glad. And I will, when I stop the recording, I think it goes into my Google Drive, and I think I'll be able to share it with Rishan. Rishan, I have your email, so.
All right, okay.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks so much for your time. Those of you who are 17 and who are going to turn 18 by November 3rd, please make sure to register to vote. I think you can actually still register online. And even if you're past the online registration, you can there's a couple of required things like your
You can
driver's
just
license, ID.
you can just go to Mr. Waxler on the 26th or whenever it is and just sign up there. Like you can register to vote there itself if you just take your student ID and stuff. So
Yeah, and we have same day registration. So March 2nd is the start of early voting, and so you go to any early voting site and look up the things that you need to bring, like your student ID. So if you miss it at school, you can actually register to vote on site. As long as I think you have to have like your student transcript, or there's a bunch of things that qualify. Like you have to show proof of address and your citizenship. And so, yeah, so I'll text you, and I'm gonna ask about the concentric circles. So like, make sure to tell your friends like, hey, vote. And part of my campaign is I don't want students and teenagers to be overlooked, right? Because I want you all to have a voice and a say in who represents you. And on the Democratic side, it's pretty exciting. Like there's a very competitive Senate race. My race is contested, right, for Illinois State Rep. My pitch is that I've won 2 elections since 2021, and my opponent has lost 3 since 2018. So I believe that I'm best positioned to flip the seat from red to blue, all right? And because when she ran, Kamala won by 4,000 votes presidential, and she still lost. So I think we need somebody who's won before, and who's experienced at building coalitions and making connections, to vote. So there's my 90-second pitch to win the primary and flip the seat finally from red to blue. So that's my pitch to you. And of course, like I'm going to be emulating this, like listening to students, listening to community groups, and seeing what your concerns are. So, but yeah, let your friends know. Tell them to go to Mr. Waxler, and if they don't, they can sign up online. And then if they don't, they can sign up day of. Illinois, fortunately, makes it really, really easy for people to vote, which is a good thing. I think, the more people voting, the better. The better, the healthier our democracy. So cool. I just gave work on your pitches. I just gave you my pitch. So work on your blood drive pitch too. I'm sure it's a part of the whole project as well. So hey, you guys, great job. Really appreciate you. Rishan, send me the link to sign up to donate blood. Don't forget. It's gonna be like
Yep.
your follow-up project. So, And then, yeah, and I'll send you voter registration links too, so you can pass those on.
All right.
And
Okay.
my web-
Perfect.
So awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah. And if,
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
and tell your parents about me.
Yep.
And if they're open to a yard sign, I put a couple at the Patel's house and they look nice. So keep me posted. Let me know. My email is on the website. It's info@erinforillinois.com. So just reach out. You know, if you all are interested, I know you all have 3,000 things to do, but if you're all interested in volunteering in the last 3 weeks, we have lots of different things for you to do on the campaign. So. All right. Well, I appreciate you all. I'll probably see you when I'm donating blood. Let's hope the needle works this time.
Yep. We'll see you then.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yep.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Have a
Bye.
great night.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.